welcome back to the Mindfulmess Show Podcast. I am so excited for today's episode because, as we promised, we have a very special guest. And I've actually been following her content for a long time now, watching her videos since since she was doing more beauty related content.
Really?
Yes. And
Wow.
I've been on YouTube for a while. Like I've been watching a lot of YouTube for many years. So I've been following her content. I've been looking up to her. I've actually learned a lot of valuable lessons that I've applied in my life from her content, both on YouTube and on her Instagram. She's an amazing content creator, also a coach. She has some really special programs, and I'm very excited for her to tell us more about it. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest, Isabel Palacios.
Thank you so much. And that's such a lovely introduction. Thank you, ladies, for having me today. And it's just so cool to hear that you've been watching me since my beauty days because that was a long time ago. And a lot of people don't know that I started off doing beauty, makeup related videos because that was like my YouTube for me was my creative escape at that time. And I started YouTube like when I was 16, 17 years old, which is crazy to think about because I'm 26 now. And I was doing like makeup tutorials, beauty related. I used to also, in between those beauty videos, I would make like, maybe you remember this, I would make like confidence videos and things about inner beauty. It's just kind of slowly over time progressed into more spirituality, more self development. And now I'm really heavily involved in the divine feminine, in just empowering women from a spiritual standpoint. And I think it really just started snowballing into this because I went through a really tough time emotionally, mentally, probably around college. So I was around 20 years old. I went through some really traumatic experiences just in a span of maybe 2 years or so. And I was just very lost. And I think a lot of people who are maybe college aged can relate to the fact that when you're in college, it's just a really like it's a fun time. Like I had a lot of fun in college, but it's also a time where you don't know what the heck you are. You don't know who
Yeah.
you are. You're just like kind of following everyone else, studying something that you're not passionate about. I studied political science. My goal was to go into politics, get a, go to law school and get into that realm. And it's like I had an awakening. I went through a really deep depression, suicidal ideation, things like that. And this was all stuff I kept to myself. So people who knew me in my day to day life, my friends, my family, they probably would have never thought that. They probably would have just by looking at me, I was a normal person on the outside, but on the inside, I was just suffering. I went through this really tough situation, all types of things. Like if you can imagine all these things going wrong, like financial, spiritual, mental, all this stuff. I was drinking heavily every single night. It was just not a good time for me. And I had an awakening. I started to read up on the law of attraction. And I started to realize that because I was in a heavy victim mentality, I thought all of this stuff is just happening to me. I don't have control over my life. My life just sucks. I'm not meant to prosper. All these other people are doing well, and I'm not for some reason, whatever reason. So that made me get into the law of attraction. It came to me. I read the book, The Secret, as basic as that is. And I watched the movie, and everything just kind of clicked for me because ever since I was a little girl, I would think about things or think about people and they'd just randomly show up. And I didn't know what it was. I thought I had some kind of weird power or something. And then until I found the secret, it was like it all made sense to me why it was happening that way. And so that told me, okay, Isabel, you have this one life. Let's make the best of it. And that's when I kind of started changing my lifestyle. So I started working out, I started being vegan, I started to just really focus. I knew I wasn't happy with what I was studying. I knew that I kind of wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to work for myself. And I had YouTube. I had that YouTube channel that I had been on and off creating content on since I was in high school. It was like my creative outlet. And I was like, you know what? I see all these people doing really well on YouTube. I see people just making big, like, this was when YouTube was like the golden era of YouTube. Everyone was like just growing exponentially. It was brand new. It wasn't like now. It's super different now, but so it just inspired me. I used to watch Casey Neistat all the time. He was a big inspiration to me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make this a part of my income. And at the time, I was making $100 every 3 months from AdSense. So from there, it was just like, I'm going to work hard. I know I can do this. So I really changed my mindset. I started to focus on what I wanted to attract. And I kept telling myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I work for myself. I don't have to work for anyone else. So I left that university that I was at probably my third year. I was so unhappy. And I was like, I just need to go back home and I need to recharge. I need to take a break. So I went home and I was like, I took a year off basically. Like everyone was telling me, go back to school, go study this, go do this. And I was just like, no, school, I can go back to it at any time. So I took a year off and I said, I'm just going to focus 100% on my content, on creating. And at that time I started talking more about my issues with anxiety and, a little bit of the law of attraction, and people loved it. They were like, please talk more about this. And so from there I segued away from, the more beauty makeup related videos and started creating the content I do now. And yeah, it's been incredible. I became a coach because I realized I was helping people in so many different ways. And so many people came to me asking me to be their coach. And so at that time, I decided, okay, I had a coach myself, and he taught me basically so many different things. He taught me how to be a coach, and which, if anyone's interested in doing personal coaching or becoming a personal coach, I would highly recommend getting your own coach first and then kind of shadowing underneath them and learning from them. And so from there, it kind of just grew. And I realized my calling in life was to help people. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't to, have a law degree or all these other things. Like, I think college is important and I learned so much in college. And I think having a college degree is important. But for me, it was always my calling is elsewhere. And when you kind of become an entrepreneur and you decide to work for yourself or create something for yourself, you're always going to have people telling you, you shouldn't do that. You should, go back to law school. You should do this. You should do that. And I had to learn to shut out the outside voices and just listen to my intuition, which every woman has an intuition that's highly developed. It's just about listening to it and growing that divine feminine energy, which is, I think, a huge superpower that we often neglect. So yeah, that's basically my story in a nutshell. And now I am a coach full time. I do, my Goddess Reset program, which just recently launched, which is kind of like a condensed version of my coaching, a more affordable version of my coaching. And I'm loving it. Like, I'm living the life of my dreams, and it just goes to show, like, from 5 years ago, I did all these different things and now I'm a completely different person than I was, depressed, sad, and unhappy with her life. So that's basically it.
But this was beautiful, and I think you mentioned so many amazing things, and especially the fact that a lot of people probably look at you and go on your Instagram, go on your YouTube, and they're like, wow, she's so successful, like she's doing so well, but no one sees the behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
No one sees the struggle. No one sees the moments when things didn't work out and you had to pull yourself together and keep going, which I think you probably agreed that's where it's at.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important that if you're going through tough things, that you learn from those things. That just because you're having a rough life right now, which a lot of people are in 2020, does not mean that you can't be successful later on, or that you can't grow from wherever you are now to where you want to be. You have to have this vision and this idea in your mind of where you want to be. And then you start bringing in as if you are already that person. So even though I didn't have barely any subscribers at that time, I said, I'm still going to create content as if I already have 200K subscribers, however many. And it's slow, like the process, for everyone, it's different. It's about trusting in your journey, but don't ever get down on yourself because you're depressed or because you're you have anxiety, or because, your brain is working against you. Don't get down on yourself. It's about taking each day at a time and taking one step at a time, because usually you see success, it's not overnight. It's hardly ever overnight. And I think that's what makes a good entrepreneur, is having patience in that process and knowing that it's not going to come from the sky, but when it does come, it's going to be so worth it.
Yeah,
No,
no,
it's yeah.
Marina, do you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to say that's really beautiful and inspiring. And I think many of us are, finding ourselves in different points in life when we're going to feel, vulnerable and anxious. And it's so nice to have like your story and this kind of, like vision that we can be so much more and we can do so much more. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's honestly what it is. You have to have that belief that things are going to get better, and they do, because one thing I've learned is that life is about ups and downs. And the way you deal with those valleys in life is what will propel you to a higher mountaintop. If you're just going to build a house in that valley and stay there, that's where you're going to stay. But if you decide, okay, actually, I'm going to take this valley time for me to work on my mindset, to work on my body, to work on my goals. I like to look at it as kind of like a cocoon when you're a butterfly. When you're inside that cocoon, it's dark, it's not great, it's not happy, but that time in the cocoon is what determines how beautiful and powerful of a butterfly you will be. And as cliche as that sounds, it's the truth. Like, your dark times are what breeds your greatness later on.
Wow, that was such a good analogy. But what do you do in those situations that are unexpected, that are not, they're not cool? Like, you weren't expecting those things to happen and they're there. Like, how do you deal with them emotionally in the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's about taking it each day at a time. So for me, for example, a lot this year and last year was a really tough year for me. What really helped me was just to focus on what's in my control. Because yes, things are going to happen that are outside of our control, and things are going to happen to us, to our family members. So many things can happen. And I think that when we release that expectation that life has to be perfect, and we just say, okay, well, this is just a part of the process, this is a part of life, and you go within and you take care of yourself emotionally, mentally. For me, a lot of it is making sure I'm eating well, making sure I'm hydrating, making sure I'm, taking a lot of, for me, adaptogens like mushrooms, not psychedelic mushrooms, but like rhodiola
No shame,
ashwagandha.
no shame at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard good things about mushrooms. I've never done them, but yeah, just taking supplements that are going to lift your mood, that are going to help you focus. And also, I think it's important to take breaks. We were talking about, before we started recording, how I decided to take a break for a month from YouTube and from creating content. And that has helped me so much, because I was feeling a lot of resistance towards it. And I told myself, you know what? It's okay to take a step back, to take a break for yourself, and to reevaluate life, and not being afraid. And this is the thing, is our culture here in the West especially is about doing, that we have to keep doing, have to keep being productive. But that's the thing, is there's so much power in just being, and being still, and not doing, and not being productive. And there's also a lot of power in just focusing on what's in your control. Because if we try to focus on what's outside of our control and all these things happening and try to control every outcome, you're going to drive yourself nuts. You're going to drain your precious energy, and you're just going to become disillusioned, because you're going to realize, wait, I can't control this situation. So it goes back to your daily habits, to your daily routines. What can you do today in this moment to feel a little better? Can you, drink some hot chocolate? Can you go for a run? Can you go, whatever it may be, that is your escape. Doing that every single day, and having a morning routine, having a night routine, having those things that give you stability when there's a lot of instability, is what will keep you going through the tough times.
That was amazing. Wow. Everyone, I hope you made some notes. No, but I'm actually very curious. What made you focus on this feminine energy? Like, what made you go in that direction and explore that idea more and even start this program that you started?
Yeah, so I recently, well, probably about a year ago, I started feeling callings towards Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. And I grew up Catholic. So, it's always been around my house. We always had, photos of the Virgin Mary and things. So I always had this connection with the divine feminine. I always had this connection with femininity and the power. And one of my biggest inspirations is Joan of Arc. And if you know her story, she was a woman who would get visions and would lead, the army to battle and would lead them to victory. And she was eventually burned at the stake as a witch after leading her own army to victory. And she stood steadfast in her belief. And she said, I'm God, I have a special connection with God. So that always led me to believe that the feminine, especially maybe in modern religions, has been suppressed in many ways. And I used to feel that connection. Like I used to feel, especially with the earth, Mother Nature, things like that. So I realized that our femininity for so long has been deemed as weaker, as lesser than, as not as powerful as the masculine. And I used to, I work with predominantly women, and my audience is predominantly women. And I used to really dive deep and ask myself, why is it that women constantly feel lesser than? Why is it that women constantly feel like they're not good enough? Why is it that women constantly put their worth, and not just women, I would say, people in general tend to, but it's women who constantly come to me with this feeling of not being good enough, of not being pretty enough, of not all these different things. And I'm like, why is that? Why is that? And it made me dive deep and realize, and throughout history, usually when you're very powerful, when you hold a power or an ability, other people try to suppress it out of fear of what you can do. So throughout history, women have been suppressed in many ways. And now we live in an era where, women have more rights and more abilities than ever, and we can express ourselves and do things that our ancestors couldn't do. So it told me, I think this is the time that there becomes an awakening of the divine feminine, awakening of that power of the femininity, because it is very powerful. Women have the power to bring life, and the whole essence of the earth is feminine. The multiplication of femininity, what the feminine does, the masculine is kind of the giver, and the feminine is the receiver and the multiplier. So the fact that we live in such a male, I would say kind of like the dark masculine, is, the greed, the competition, all of that. We live in a society dominated by that. And you notice all the issues that we're having and that we've had for a long time. It's because of that. It's because the feminine has been suppressed. The feminine needs to come in and balance out that masculine, and they need to work together. And also for myself personally, I always, since I am involved in business and I am involved in entrepreneurship, I have noticed that I had to suppress a lot of my femininity. And I noticed that I felt kind of, and, feminism can teach us that, we have to be very tough, and that, certain gender roles that women have had in the past can be a negative thing. And I don't agree with that. I think that, feminism has its good things as well, but I think that also we need to enjoy being women.
Yeah.
And that's probably been my main thing so far, is just enjoy being a woman, enjoy the power of femininity, and diving into divine feminine in every aspect of your life, is, even in business, is really powerful.
I wanted, well, this is not necessarily related to feminine energy, but just something that I've been very, very curious about. Because you said that you started with The Secret, and I think all of us started with The Secret in their law of attraction journey. But what other books, or like, I don't know, like even movies or documentaries would you recommend to start the journey?
Yes. Well, this is the thing, is I was going to add to that, is The Secret is kind of a very basic approach to the law of attraction, and just kind of starts make you think, it starts to open up your mind a little bit to, maybe my thoughts do affect certain things and certain outcomes. But I think that The Secret is, I wouldn't recommend The Secret right away. you could, but oh, I'm sorry. I think my
No worries.
that keeps I don't know why my cords do this. Okay. I think what's really important is that you start to I'm sorry, I gotta adjust myself here. I like the movie The Secret. I think it's really helpful. But for me, who really changed my way of thinking, and this you can watch, anybody can read this as a beginner, but Dr. Joe Dispenza's books are incredible for learning just about quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Also, the book Psycho-Cybernetics is really powerful. And I would just say if anyone wants to start, and I don't even want to call it the law of attraction. I've if you guys have noticed, like with my content over time, I've kind of stopped making these manifestation, how to manifest this, how to manifest, because I believe that we have to really make what we want to attract a lifestyle. So for example, if you want to be somebody successful and make X amount of money or whatever it is, I'm really not a person who's heavily in the material. I've just, kind of transcended that. But if you are a person that wants to, let's say, manifest a specific car, I would say instead of, you can like make a vision board and like put it up there and have that vision of you already there, but also making sure that your habits, your actions, all of it aligns with you already being as if you have that car, not, oh, I'm just going to think about it, and it'll be here. No, it's like you have to make sure that your vibration, and this is something that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, it's kind of like your energy signature. You got to make sure that that is in line with what it is that you want. So for example, it's like, so many people are afraid of flying in airplanes, right? And yet you don't really hear much about plane crashes. So that tells you that just because you think about something doesn't mean it's just going to automatically happen, right? So it means that our heart center and our brain, we have to have our brain and our heart working together in order to create, kind of come together and be in the same wavelength in order to create something. So that's what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, which I highly recommend. I wish I would have found his work a lot earlier because it really taught me that you have to be, like right now, you have to be that person, that successful person, or that person with that, dream relationship. You have to already feel the love inside of you. You already have to feel wealthy. You already have to feel, and that just comes from constantly being in that habit. Because if you're a person who's constantly saying, oh, I'm broke, I can't afford this and that, these limiting beliefs, then you're going to feel stuck. You're going to feel like what you're talking about and what you're thinking doesn't line up.
Yeah.
So the trick to manifestation is making sure your words, your thoughts and actions, which create your vibration, are all in line. And then that's how things come into your life just smoothly, easily.
It's part though, aligning your vibration and energy, because you go day by day and you don't really think, that you need to act as if, and then it just doesn't work. But that's a wonderful insight. I should take that, as an advice.
Yeah, it's Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, he's really changed my life, and he's made me look at, the law of attraction in a more scientific way, that it is real. Also, Greg Braden is huge on that. Yeah, it's really about learning just how powerful just quantum physics are. So like, it sounds daunting when you say quantum physics, but honestly, it's just so, it's really clear, and it's very, if you're a scientifically minded person, that's probably the best way to get into the law of attraction.
And we love reality transurfing. I don't know if you,
Yeah.
we're very, I mean, my mom introduced me to the book because it's originally written in Russian. And we as a family speak, except for me, everyone in my family speaks Russian. So she was like, this is a really, really cool book. You should order it in English. So I've read it, a couple of years ago, and I told Marina about it, and she started reading it, and we started doing a little series about it. So I think it's super powerful as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually haven't read that book, but one of my friends, YouTuber Aaron Dowdy, he would make a lot of videos on it too. And I kind of learned a little bit. I need to read it though.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. It's a really good book. It's a really good book. Um, but okay, I have one question for you. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that, but I'm talking about imposter syndrome. Have you
Mm,
ever dealt with this? Because I feel like, I don't know, I deal with this sometimes. So
mhm.
I'm curious of your opinion about it.
Yeah, a lot of people do. And I think that a lot of people don't talk about it as much. Nowadays, people do have more of a dialogue around it. But funny thing enough, if you deal with imposter syndrome, it's because you're a highly, just a highly overachieving person. You're a person who you have accomplished a lot. And yeah, I've dealt with imposter syndrome myself in the past, but it all stems from a limiting belief, a belief system that you're not worthy, or that you're not good enough to do something, or, and it really is specific to what industry you're in or what you're doing, because a lot of people in academia, for example, deal with imposter syndrome because they go into a room full of these people full of all different degrees and accolades, and they're like, should I even be here? Should I even do this? And with imposter syndrome, I think it's about owning the fact that you feel it, not trying to push it away, because often, and I believe a lot in shadow work. So I believe that we should make the unconscious conscious, or the shadow aspects of things that we're pushing away, we should bring it to light and kind of own that fact and kind of say, well, I feel like I'm not good enough, but I'm here, or I'm doing this. And I think what really helps with imposter syndrome is just taking action. Keep taking action in the direction that your limiting beliefs are kind of pushing you away from. So, for example, I know a lot of people tell me, like, oh, I really want to do what you're doing, but I don't feel like I'm good enough or I'm qualified enough or all these things. And I say, well, you're not going to become qualified unless you actually do the work, unless you actually, work in that field and you constantly are putting in that action, putting in, and also your habits. Make sure your habits are of a person that is in that space already. Again, like I said, becoming the person, being as if. And that really helps. But also, not to listen to that little voice in your head that's telling you you're not good enough, because that voice is not you. It's the ego. It's often other people's voices that they, have put in our heads. But yeah, imposter syndrome is very, very common. A lot of people have it. And it's about just owning the fact that you have it. When I say owning, I don't mean that you have to make it a part of you. Just saying, I deal with it. I deal with it. Sometimes I don't feel good enough when I walk into a room or I talk to certain people, but that's okay. Every person who is in a new situation and just gets a new job or a promotion or starts a business is going to feel like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. What the hell am I doing? And in that sense, you have to surround yourself with people who are going to uplift you, who are also go-getters, who are people who are, working towards goals. It's important to listen to a lot of people who, like for me, for example, I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome, and somebody who really helped me was Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you guys know him. He's,
Yes.
Love him. I love him.
Helps
and
us
he
all.
just, yeah. And he was just starting out when I found him years ago. And he really pushed me that, this is a new era. A lot of people are doing things online, and, it's normal to have like, an online business. And this was when people were like, what, you do YouTube? Like, kind of that kind of thing. And it's just really about keep doing the work. Don't burn yourself out, but keep doing the work, find breaks, do things that are enjoyable to you in your field. And eventually you'll feel a sense of accomplishment. But do not place your worth or your value in your accomplishments solely. It's important that you realize your worth and your value do not come from your accomplishments, do not come from what is happening external to you. They are intrinsic. You are born worthy. You are worthy as a human being of having whatever it is that you desire. And anything else is simply programming, societal limitations, and all that stuff. It's not, it's not the truth.
Drop the mic.
Yeah.
What else can we say after this? Honestly, amazing. No, this was just the way you explain things is just so easy to understand, and I'm sure everyone listening is just as impressed as we are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Marina, if you have any other final questions,
I don't. I mean, I would, but then we would be here for another 2 hours. And I know you're having a meeting soon. So for me, it's okay.
but thank you so much. This was amazing. And, for the people that want to get in touch with you, maybe enroll in your new program, really recommend that one. They can find you on Instagram, right? At Isabel Palacios.
Yes.
And go on YouTube and check out her videos, because she looks just as flawless in all the videos. Oh, seriously. It's actually
You are beautiful.
so, and the content, you can see that it's coming from a very authentic place.
Thank you.
Which is rare nowadays, really. I mean, there's not that much authenticity, unfortunately, but this is what we're working towards, right? To bring more authenticity and value.
For sure. Yes. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Isabel V. Palacios. Or if you're interested in my course, it's at Goddess Reset on Instagram, where you can learn more. And yes, the course taps all into the divine feminine, what we kind of touched upon here, being authentic. Like you said, authenticity, that's the basis of it. It's like not about being somebody else, but it's about embodying your own unique inner goddess and letting that kind of reverberate all over. And it's great. Like if you're in a rut, I know a lot of people have been dealing with being in a rut this year and feeling unmotivated, like you're disconnected. It has been a traumatic year for a lot of people, but it's also a year of a lot of growth. So if you want to take that step further and really step into your potential this year, and like I was talking about earlier, we have to take those dark moments and really create something out of them. That's what the program is designed to be. So yeah, thank you so much, ladies, for having me on. And it's been a pleasure. And I hope maybe we can have a conversation soon on my own podcast.
Yes, that would be such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Isabel, for your time and for your insights. And we hope everyone will enjoy this as much as we do.
Thank you, angels.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.